Hello guys, today I'll be talking about a fairly divisive album in the band's discography, that album being One More Light by Linkin Park. And as the singles were coming out, I still remember the feelings I was experiencing during this time of when the singles were coming out. I just remember being just super upset, and I found myself agreeing with a lot of the people that were giving negative thoughts towards these singles. Because I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of pop. Now, I'm not saying that all pop is bad. There is some good pop out there, but pop in general just not really my genre. But when Linkin Park did it, I just wasn't on board. I just wasn't really into it. And when the album finally came out, I remember liking maybe 2 or 3 songs, but well, the rest of the album just did nothing for me. But looking back at it now, if someone were to make the argument that this album was Chester Bennington giving a cry for help through these songs, I can somewhat maybe understand. I can kind of see that, especially with certain songs, but either way, at the end of the day, I still think it's Linkin Park's weakest album, especially their least engaging album too, because as you're listening to the album, you can also tell that it's fairly reserved in terms of its intensity. The album is very, I guess you could say, calm or down to earth. There are many other terms you can throw out there, but ultimately at the end of the day, again, I still think it's their weakest album. But let's go ahead and dive into the album. The album starts off with Nobody Can Save Me, and this song gives you a good idea of what you're about to get into with this album, with how calm and melodic it is, but also you hear the poppy sound too. And I think it's one of the more decent tracks of the album. Now, I wouldn't say that I like it. It's not a song that I'd return to over and over a lot or anything, but for what it is, I do think it's one of the better songs and a decent way to start off the album. I mean, when it comes to Linkin Park, I definitely think it'd be better to start off with a more upbeat song as the album opener, but in this case, I can understand why they'd maybe pick this song or a few others as maybe the album opener, but let's go ahead and move on to the next track, Good Goodbye. And right off the bat, you can notice that the more rap side of Linkin Park is starting to show in this song. Of course, with the Futures, Pusha T, and Stormzy. Now, I like Mike Shinoda's verse. Pusha T's verse, I like too. I'm not a Pusha T fan, but I do like some of his work. I do like a few of his songs, like If You Know, You Know, and Infrared, and a few other songs, but Pusha T's verse in the song, not bad. Nothing that's going to blow you away, but again, I do like his verse. Stormzy's verse, might as well should have gotten a different rapper. Definitely not a fan of his verse. Is it unlistenable? I don't know if I'd go that far, but either way, just wasn't very impressed with his verse. Then you get to the chorus where you get to hear Chester, and you also have that chipmunk thing going on, that chipmunk voice or effect, and that just doesn't work for me. I mean, never been a fan of that chipmunk effect, and some of you might understand what I'm getting at there, but this song, it's a mixed bag. Some things I like, some things I don't like. But next we have, in my opinion, maybe the best song on the album, or at least my favorite on the album, Talking to Myself. And this is one of the few songs on the album where you can actually hear guitar, where you can actually hear Brad Delson. And I mean, sure, the guitar work in the song's not going to blow you away. It's not going to break new ground for anybody or anything, but it doesn't have to anyways. But I don't know what it is about this song. Ever since first listen, I've always found it to be pretty interesting and one of the more engaging songs on the album. It's not as reserved or as down to earth as some of the other tracks on the album. Maybe that's part of why I like it more than most of the other songs on the album, but I think the song overall is pretty catchy. I'll definitely give it that. And Chester overall sounds pretty dang good in this song, especially towards the end of the song, the last minute or so. I think that's one of his best, you could say, vocal moments on the album. But yeah, Talking to Myself, really like this song, to be honest. Then we have Battle Symphony. If I remember correctly, this was the second single, and it's okay. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. It doesn't make me mad like maybe some fans would be like, but for me, I'm kind of in the middle about it. Not bad, but not good either. Just kind of middle of the road for me, I guess you could say. But then we have the song Invincible. Invisible. This song kind of doesn't do much for me. A little bit underwhelming in my opinion. Musically, it's just nothing all that impressive. It's nothing new. It's nothing that I haven't heard before. It's kind of just another song on the album for me personally. I mean, I don't know if I'd say it's a bad choice for a single, but for what it is, I wasn't really into it. But then we have the first single, Heavy, featuring Kiara. And this track, now it is a bit on the shorter side. I mean, lyrically, it does give its message across well. I just feel like lyrically in general, it's a bit underwhelming, and the pop beat, the poppiness of this track, it's kind of been there, done that. It's kind of standard bare bones pop song that doesn't really offer much in terms of really anything new, anything that we haven't heard before. But for what it is, it's a decent way to introduce your album. Decent first single, even if it doesn't really offer a whole lot, in my opinion. Kiara's verse, in my opinion, her voice sounds very typical. Nothing to write home about. I mean, her voice, her voice too. Her verse doesn't really make me mad or anything, but her contribution to the song just doesn't leave much of a lasting impression, in my opinion. And I would say that I don't hate it as much as when it came out, but I still think it's not all that impressive of a song. But I wouldn't say that it's god awful or unlistenable by any means. Then we have Sorry for Now, and if I remember correctly, this is the song where you have Mike singing. And now when it comes to Mike singing in general, I think his singing voice is okay. I wouldn't say that I love it as much as some other fans, but I wouldn't say that's bad either. I do like it, but again, I don't love it. And when it comes to this song, not a whole lot about the song really impressed me all that much. It kind of just goes from one ear and out the other. I don't know. It just doesn't leave much of a lasting impression, and not much about the song just makes me want to return to it in general. But it's kind of middle of the road, I guess. But then we have, in my opinion, one of the weakest songs on the album, Halfway Right. There is just nothing interesting about this song, in my opinion. The song offers really nothing new for the album, or really pop music in general. I mean, honestly, I think it's a throwaway track. It's just really just very average, typical pop that just offers nothing new, and not much more to say about this song. Definitely a skippable song, in my opinion. Then we get to, in my opinion, one of the better songs on the album, but nowadays maybe a bit more difficult to listen to, especially when you think about the passing of Chester. Of course, that song being the title track, One More Light. As you're listening to it, you can tell this is a very emotional song, especially for Chester. I know there was a performance, maybe it was on Jimmy Kimmel, I can't remember, but he was singing this song, and I think he was crying or tearing up a bit. I can't remember, but either way, it was a cool performance though. But with this song, it is a bit more down to earth, a bit more reserved, of course. And the song mainly focuses on, really has the spotlight be on Chester's singing and all the emotion and stuff like that. And all around, I think it's a pretty good song. I wouldn't say that I love it, but I would say that if I had to choose favorites on the album, it'd probably be one of my favorites, though, even if it's not a song that I've returned to very often or anything. But for what it is, I still think it's a pretty good pop song in general. Then we finally get to the album closer, Sharp Edges. You hear a little bit of country in this song. Vocally, not one of Chester's best moments. That's just my opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but vocally, I wouldn't say it throughout the whole song, but vocally, there are moments in this song where I'm just not really digging his vocal delivery, the way he's delivering certain lyrics. I don't know. The song just doesn't do much for me. Not their strongest album closer, to be honest. But I wouldn't say that's the worst song on the album, though. But anyways, if I had to rate this album, I don't know. It's going to be a low score, though, because I do think it's their weakest album. I probably have to give it... well, I know some people would probably give it like a 1 or a 2 or a 0, which I think is maybe going a bit too far, especially nowadays. I'd probably give it at least maybe a 4, maybe a 4 or a 5. My rating could change any time, but maybe I'll go with a 4 or a 5 out of 10. Definitely their weakest album, in my opinion. Definitely their least engaging album. I mean, I wish the album ventured away from the more reserved vibe of the album. I wish there were more moments that were a bit more upbeat, a bit more energetic. But I mean, I understand that the album really focuses more on the emotion and stuff like that, but I don't know. The album, again, I still think it's the weakest today, but for what it is, I wouldn't say that's the worst album that I've ever heard, but again, I'm probably going to go with either a 4 or a 5 out of 10, but now let's go ahead and talk about Chester's passing. I feel like it's appropriate for this review because, especially with the things that he was saying around the time of the release of this album, when he passed, oh man, I was really upset because that was one of the passings that actually really hit me, to be on a personal level, because he was a lead singer that I really looked up to. I mean, he was Linkin Park, if you haven't heard, is one of my first bands, so there is some nostalgia for this band, and Linkin Park does hold a special place in my heart. So when he passed away, that really hit me. And I'm not really an emotional guy in general, but yeah, I mean, especially when you think about some of the lyrics on this album, you can definitely tell that Chester was not in the greatest place at this time, and you can tell that maybe you could say that the what's the word that I'm looking for? Or the negative feedback or the negative reception that the fans gave towards this album really got to him. It really bothered him, and yeah, it's unfortunate that he's gone now, especially with how unique his voice was and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely rest in peace for sure. But anyways, again, I'm going to go ahead and give this a 4 or a 5 out of 10 for this album. But anyways, let me know your thoughts on the album. Do you love it? Do you hate it? How's it compared to the other albums for you personally? Let me know favorite songs or least favorite songs on the album and all that good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like, subscribe. Have a nice day, and take care.